And now let's move on to what the veterans of the industry have to say. We had been hearing from the youngs of the real estate industry, and going by what our other panelists here have to say, these two veterans of the industry, the thought leaders of the industry, they need no introduction, but as is the formality in our event, we need to give a brief introduction of both our speakers here. So we have with us Mr. Anuj Puri, who's the chairman Anarock Group. Mr. Puri has over 30 years of experience in Indian and global real estate markets and is a trusted advisor to developers, occupiers, investors, and the government. And Mr. Puri is widely acknowledged with revolutionizing the sector with his visionary outlook and technology-based solutions. We also have with us Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, co-founder and managing director, Hiranandani Group of Companies. He's the national president, NAREDCO, and the immediate past president of ASSOCHAM. With his profound knowledge and sharp business acumen, he has been conferred with the leadership role across various prominent business organizations and industry chambers. And as we all know, he's also been advisors to a lot of government panels and committees. So I hand it over to you now, Mr. Puri, for the very interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sapna. It's absolutely a pleasure, delight. Truly appreciate you giving us the opportunity. He's my favorite man, whom I'm going to be asking all the questions. The most articulate with his thoughts, the most seasoned professional in real estate, and Sapna, as you rightly said, is the youngest person. Not many people know he's actually self-made. When I came into the industry, I didn't know. I thought it was Niranjan Bhai's father who had created the entire thing in Powai. Little did I know that I was meeting the man himself 25 years ago. He's certainly the voice of the industry, whether it is with the financial institutions, with the state government, with the central government, with the consumer, with the media. We have Mr. Hiranandani, who's greatly in demand. And finally, he's not just a great human being. What he has built, I've had now an opportunity to look at it a lot more closely. Great product, great governance, and above all, great financial discipline that he's had from day one, and that is where his group today is. So Niranjan Bhai, we've got about 40 minutes, and I have 10 questions to ask. If I can start with the first one.
Sure, Anuj, it's such a pleasure always being with you. So my pleasure.
Thank you. So Niranjan Bhai, it is about youth and millennials. One side is youth and millennials, and one side is the earlier generation. What would be the 2 or 3 differences between these two that you would highlight?
I think the new generation definitely has more data, more information, more availability, more willingness to stretch their minds and thoughts in different ways than we could have ever imagined in terms of doing it. Willing to experiment with new things and ideas and thoughts, both inside and outside, and have a thought process to move out of the box. Now, when we looked at it in the yesteryear, we kind of copied and emulated those who were leaders in the profession, and that went on all the time. Today, what has happened is the next generation is really willing to experiment, whether they are willing to experiment with technology, in terms of marketing, in terms of sales, in terms of social media, in terms of channel partners interaction, in various things. And I find that the new generation definitely is making a world of a difference in terms of how they interact with this. Now, unless we do not understand all these new items and thoughts, you will always find somebody who will take over this matter. So what we really need to know is that we need to get to learn to say first unlearn and then relearn what are the new things which are taking place. I'll give you some small example of things, not only in the marketing side, which you are of course an expert on, but construction side. Now, when we moved from regular things to Maivan construction, people said, oh, this is very good because it's faster, it's quicker, it's easier, you require less manpower, all these things are happening. But the consequential action of it, you got to hear the story. There's a building in Prabhadevi, no names, by a reputed builder who shifted to Maiwan construction. And the building got completed in record time because the new technology definitely helped the person to go faster. But come monsoon, that entire building leaks, leaks, and leaks. So you just can't use new technology without understanding the negatives of that technology and what precautions you really need to do in order to do it. So many times when we talk about change, Anuj, it's not a simple change that you need to do. You got to learn the full repercussions of these changes which are taking place. And only when you're able to take care of all the side effects of change in technology and all that is really going to do. So we need to go not only in terms of change, but you got to really get into the minuscule part of the repercussions of each of these aspects of it and really take a feedback on it. So change is imperative. New ideas and thoughts are definitely going to come, but you at the same time got to know how you really take care to see that you get the fruits of the change and not the thorns of the change. So if you can talk about the fruits and flowers that we see. So all that is a mixed blessing, but change is inevitable.
I agree with that, Niranjan bhai. And one of the things that I am finding is that the next generation, the youth, the millennial, is not getting that attracted to real estate development particularly. Niranjan bhai, they are more keen on startups, technology, disruption, but not as much in real estate. What's the reason, in your opinion? Is it that it is too cumbersome as a business?
The same thing is happening in many other fields. So if you look at textile mills, in the good old days, everybody who wanted to become rich wanted to put up a textile mill. That was an aspiration and model that took place. Then there were too many textiles mills till the consolidation did not take place. So once the consolidation has taken place, now you have very, very successful textile mills, but the numbers are very small. So similarly in the real estate industry, every Tom, Dick and Harry, whether he was a landlord of a plot or he was an industry which had surplus lands or he had different ideas on it, very few of the people who got into the industry actually looked at it as a line of business like they did of the original line of business that they were really doing. Only those who got into the line of business by saying that, no, we want to be in this line of business, not to get the fruits and rewards of this real estate and then make the money and put it into the rest of the business and others, were they very successful. So even if you look at the corporate endeavors which have taken place, Anuj, not all of them have become successful. In fact, very few of them have been successful, in spite of them being very, very, very successful in their industrial operations. So the kind of attention required for the purposes of doing any business, whether it's real estate or it is any other industry, requires a total working which is introspective, which is detailed, which is perseverant, which is all that is going to take place. Hence, I remember you are making a talk in one of the earlier shows on TV where you saw, where you mentioned about consolidation in a very large way. And that consolidation is taking place, one, by attrition of people who are leaving the industry after completing their projects and not wanting it, or the next generation not wanting to take about it. But this is a natural phenomena which took place in any businesses which are going through a challenging time, which has taken place in the real estate after demonetization and so on and so forth. Whatever has happened in the next 3 years have been challenging. So obviously people find it easier to look at startups, looking at other buildings, looking at the stock market, which are growing. So nothing wrong with that. It's a natural phenomena of the whole thing. And those who stay have to work far more harder to make it successful while all this consolidation takes place.
I agree with you. I agree with you absolutely that the industry is going through a consolidation at this moment in time. And those who are going to be able to bear the challenges of consolidation are the ones who are going to go through, and there'll be several who will not be able to go through. And my guess is that's when you are going to start to see new talent, the millennials come through, because at this moment in time, it's gone through the machine, it's going through the grind, it's going through a huge amount of, challenging, turbulent time, not only after demonetization, NBFC crisis, and then a lot of developers had a huge amount of debt that they had taken from NBFCs at very high cost. That entire grind they are going through. So you're absolutely right, is that once we come out on the other side, you're perhaps going to be able to see a lot more millennials getting attracted, because it's going to be a more mature business, more cleaner business, more process driven business. A question related to this, Niranjan, by your organization, you've been able to build it up with professionals. I dare say in India, there'll be more than 24 developers who have been able to attract good quality talent and retain that good quality talent. If you look around, majority of the developers in India are really just them, and everything really ends at them, whether it is from land acquisition to financing to approvals to sales, marketing to collection, everything is there. So what were the few tricks that you had? What is it that you had that you were able to attract quality talent and you were able to retain and get the best out of that quality talent?
So it's a question of, I believe. I believe that you need to get good professionals to work with you. They don't need to be IIT and IIMs and the top end of the things, but you need people who are highly committed professionals to be done. They do not have to be the best in the world, but if they are perseverant, if they are committed, they have integrity, they have honesty, and they are sustainability, you can build the organization up with such people. I am unfortunately have a handicap in that. Anuj, you must understand that I don't have enough young blood with me. So actually, sometimes I do regret that there is not so much turnover, but we are so much a family in terms of the organization that it's becoming difficult for me to really do the churn, which sometimes is required to get young blood into the organization. So the first part of your question is easy to answer, which is I wanted to have professionals from day one because I believed that we needed to get professional quality. But the second part of the thing, which I do believe is still not happening in my organization, is that I'm not getting enough young blood into the organization as yet. And I do want to do that part of it. But unfortunately, we do not get young blood which are suitably qualified for the job at the startup. And hence, I'm starting a school of real estate now, simply because I do believe that bright minds who are fully educated and in the domain knowledge of real estate and are bright are the type of people we should take into the industry. But we don't have a school today in India which says that, all right, the bright students of this thing who are MBA graduates. Now, when you get somebody from an MBA school today, suppose he's talking about finance, but he has no knowledge about the real estate domain. You talk somebody about marketing, he has no idea of the domain. So what do? You pick up somebody with an MBA who has done 5, 7, 10 years in some other company, and he comes with that residuary, the idiosyncrasies of whatever he learned from the companies, though of course he gets experience. But we are not able to attract talent which has got domain knowledge and still smart and done at a 24, 25, 26-year-old, which we need to do. And that is why we are starting the School of Real Estate, Anuj, so that in the next couple of years, we will be able to pick the brightest of these students and be able to take them into the real estate and start them off. My belief is, while we want professionals, we need a churn of young blood also to come into the industry, which I hope in the next couple of years we'll be able to do.
And it is so important, because if you look around, the consumer of real estate today is the millennial. He is the consumer, he is the buyer. And yet within the manufacturer, which is the developer, we don't have those many millennials. So ability to understand what the need of a millennial is, only another millennial can understand. And if we don't have that reflection in the manufacturer, within the developer, they'll never be able to understand what the consumer really wants, what's the demand. So you're absolutely right that that school that that you've set up for real estate would be able to bring in the talent which will be almost ready to get on the job straight away. Otherwise, we have to hunt from other industries, train them on the job, and then hopefully, they deliver and perform. So this is going to be very helpful because ultimately the buyer of real estate increasingly is the millennial. And if we don't have someone who's understanding their mindset within our respective organizations, then it becomes very difficult to produce a product. Just continuing with that, Niranjan Bhai, one of the decision makers on the residential space is the woman herself. And we have very little gender diversity within real estate. I mean, if you look at it, it is a space dominated by men. Benita is there. She's probably amongst the few, women who have decided to make this as a career. So it is a very gender biased industry. What can we do, Niranjan Bhai, to make it some equality?
I think historically it did not carry integrity. It did not mean honesty. It did not mean people thought of it as an industry with people who are making black money and stuff like that. That was the impression of the industry. So women were not very happy to join this industry, while there were many other businesses and industries and professions which I think had a better name at that point of time. So a lot of people, women, girls would be hesitant to get into the industry as such. And the type of people who were considered in the industry also were not the right kind of people. That has changed. So I'm sure that in the next generation, you will see more women and girls getting into the industry in a much bigger way. We have a lot of women professionals working in our company as such. At all levels of organization and even the highest levels. So it's not that we don't have the women, we do. And but the point is what you're saying, Anuj, is correct. I don't think earlier this was there. That has changed. And I'm sure in the next generation, we will get more and more girls, women to get into this into the real estate line and business for the purposes of doing it. And there is no reason why this is not going to happen. But we got to create an image which is better and more attractive in terms of good professionals to be able to get into this industry. And I'm sure young people as well as women will get attracted to it. So it's the duty of the industry to better themselves in terms of their projections, which I think people like you are doing it extremely effectively. So I think we all have to work harder in order to be able to get this gender equality also of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
I, for one, have found it difficult to get them, but we have been doing it in the past. Many of our senior people are women and they're doing extremely well. So they will come in. But across the board, the answer is they've not been there.
Yeah. And then you're right, over the last 2 decades, the repute that the industry had was very different to what it is today. So hopefully, over the next few years, we'll be able to attract a lot more good quality women to come into our sector. Just changing gears, Niranjan Bhai, 2 questions on the business itself. One is on the offices, a lot of people would have asked you, this work from home, work near home, work from anywhere, all sorts of things. I would love to know what your thought is, given you're a considerable producer of office real estate. And then second point is on residential. I don't want to talk about the demand on residential. I just want to understand your views on pricing, because a common question that everybody is wanting to know is, are the prices going to come down?
So on the first question of commercial real estate, the answer is very simple. If the GDP of India grows up at 10% plus, the requirement of commercial real estate will grow exponentially. There is no doubt about it. It may grow 6%, 7%, 10%, 20%. One doesn't know. But it will grow. If India is to grow and things will grow, the commercial real estate definitely is going to grow as far as the country is concerned. However, there are two aspects which has taken place post-COVID. The first of it is being the work from home aspect of the whole thing and the requirement of space for social distancing in the commercial office space. So the first part of it is work from home. The statements which came out even from a company like TCS is that in the next few years, we will have 75% of the people working from home. I read a report last week which has come out from New York, where JP Morgan says, I want everybody back in the offices.
Yes.
So that was exactly in conflict with the issues of that. And many of the clients of many of the IT companies have said, we are not satisfied with the confidentiality of our data. If you're going to work from home and the people are going to work from home, it's okay during COVID times. But afterwards, we do not want the confidentiality of our data and processing to be worked from home. And if you know, many of the offices, the access to these rooms where the IT spaces are working are so tight in terms of security. It's very difficult to enter these premises when they are operational, simply because the clients at the ultimate analysis wants this part of it. The second part of that same question is the question of how much space are you going to have per person in terms of it. And obviously, the earlier place where we cramped people into like a pack of sardines is not going to happen in the future thing. We're already talking to two of the IT companies which are taking more spaces from us in the next 6 months. And they've already said that the space distancing for their layouts are going to be different, which means more. But obviously, 20 to 25% of the people will work from home. So they may not need much more space, but they're not using less space simply because we are going to do it. Now, from the statement which came up where 75% people will work from home to 25% people working from home to partially working from home, the work from home is now a reality. So we will have to benchmark that from our reality situation. However, the other part is also true. Any growth in the country in terms of an overall GDP growth, which we hope will happen post the third round of COVID, will see a requirement of commercial real estate. The best news is many people are running away from construction of commercial real estate. So there will not be an oversupply of commercial real estate, which happened in the earlier years where it happened. So people will now benchmark the market and make commercial real estate. So I as a company, we as a company are definitely committing to commercial real estate. But funnily, Anuj, you will notice that people are willing to go to certain locations, certain places which have found favor. And there are full buildings which are still vacant, even in the best of times in terms of commercial, because people are not studying the market and then making the commercial product. So I think what you talked about again in another program that you said about how we have to study the market in terms of understanding what we should be building was something which is, again, I have to repeat in this program, saying that we need to study the market in order to create the space. So anybody who's foolhardy in creating commercial real estate without understanding the nuances of change which has taken place in the marketplace is going to be lost out. And that is going to be extremely important in understanding that. So that's part of the answer to your question on commercial real estate. On the residential real estate, I'm going to give you a story which I think, mentioned to you earlier. There is, in 2019, 3 companies which manufactured cars: BMW, Mercedes, and Maruti, Suzuki. The first one manufactured between 10,000 and 12,000 cars in 2019. I'm purposely not using the COVID time. So about 10,000 cars or 12,000 cars. Mercedes-Benz also did about 12 to 13,000 cars sale in 2019. Maruti Suzuki manufactured 1.7 million cars May I repeat that? 1.7 million cars as compared to 10. If tomorrow Mercedes decides to manufacture 1 lakh cars, or BMW decides to manufacture 1 lakh cars, they'll be destroyed as a company, because there'll be so much overbuild and there will be no sales at all of those cars if they manufacture that many cars, because the market can't sustain. But Maruti, at the price range at which you have, it is. So the bottom of the pyramid is growing much faster than the top of the pyramid. And because the price of land is going up, and I overheard in the last program, the price of steel, cement, and other materials are going up also. It is difficult and more difficult with so much cost, taxes, and other things to build at the bottom of the pyramid. There is a problem where we have a cost overrun in terms of land cost, in terms of construction cost, in terms of interest cost, and all these costs. So we are not able to cater for the bottom end of the pyramid. So we will have to work the programs as has been done in the PMAY schemes and other schemes in order to cross-subsidize it in some manner whatsoever in order to grow that end of the pyramid. And that is why we have so many jhopatpattis in Mumbai, not because we cannot construct them, but because of the land price, construction cost, and others are actually outpricing anything which is in reality affordable with the marketplace. So this difference between the two segments has been filled in by the automobile sector. In the real estate sector also we will have to fill in. So that's the broad statement on residential. But residential demand will continue, and there will be good, bad, ugly. Again, oversupplies like took place in the NCR region is going to be a disaster. So at the same time, the supply will have to cater to see how much the market can bear and at what price point these things are going to be able to be catered for. Those are going to be there. And we cannot everybody copy the top end of the pyramid and expect that, oh, I'm making a good product, so I'm going to sell it at a thing, or the large size tenements are going to do because the market is good for them. I think that would be a disaster for the market if they even tried to do that kind of a thing and make 1 lakh Mercedes-Benz and BMWs. Yes. So they cannot do that part of it. If people don't understand this, they will get burned, as has happened many times in the past and probably will continue to happen because we don't do enough market study on this market.
My last segment, Niranjan bhai, we only got about 7 minutes left. 2 questions in that. One is, what are the 3 key pieces of advice that you would give to the young generation? 3 key pieces of advice to the young generation who are wanting to get into this segment.
I don't think any young person listens to advice. My children don't listen, so why should other people listen and all that? So I don't want to look at it as an advice. I can only tell them that, look, this is the direction in which the markets are going, and then you really pick up the whole thing. The real estate as an opportunity is fantastic. So what you really need to understand is to what extent can you be a partner in this opportunity? The first biggest change which has required to be changed is that the capital requirements have shot up the roof. So if you don't look after the capital requirements which are there. So let me give you an example. If 7 years ago or 5 years ago, I built a building and I estimated that I would require 50 crores of investment of mine in order to do this project. Today, I have to program for 150 crores for the same size of project in order to make the project complete, irrespective for what is the reasons for it. I'm not sharing for lack of time, but actually it's there. So you require much more capital in terms of it. The second part of it is that your product has to be very, very studied in order to do it. Because if you don't have a product which is working in the marketplace, then you should not do it. And the third part of it is regulatory requirements needs to be far more is stricter now than it ever was before. So if you do not understand the requirements of title, you don't require the requirements of RERA in terms of how you got to complete it, when you got to complete it, and the wild statements which developers made in terms of their advertising, etc., of things which they are never going to do or their projects are never going to do. I think if they get into a little more effective regulatory requirements that we need to do, I think it's going to be there. But what the young people should do more than anything else is to be passionate about what they do. You know, just not make a product. You got to be passionate that you make a good product, a product which is durable, a product which looks good, a product which is good for the customer, all the things you need to do. So you got to put your full passion into the whole product and say to do it. You know, you buy a Maruti car, it still works perfectly. You know, I mean, you need to make buildings and products and layouts which actually are perfectly working. That's very important to do. You can't have the chalta hai attitude that we need to do. So once you get into this whole thing, have a kind of a determined, perseverant, passionate objective of making great and good products and good name and reputation for your company and your project. If you do all this, I think you can be very, very successful.
My final last question, Niranjan, imagine you and I were doing this discussion in 2030, 9 years hence from today on a Saturday evening. Would we be able to reflect back and say that, you know, look how long way we guys have come in, and we can compare ourselves in real estate today in India to what Singapore has been able to achieve in terms of quality of construction, in terms of transparency of construction, in terms of maturity of the financial markets for real estate, in terms of the volumes that are delivered, or you think we'll still not be able to reach that level in the next 9 years?
The bottom of the pyramid has to be taken care of in a very structured social ideas with thought processes of how that sector can be catered on. The private sector can cater for maybe 20% of the entire total demand in the next 5 to 9 years. The bottom of the pyramid, unless some real changes do not take place, I don't know how they are going to be able to cater for 50% of the population living in jhopatpattis in India. But I do believe that there's going to be a completely new city created, let's say, out of Mumbai. So the entire city will move northwards. You will get a city right from Panvel to Karjat, the new airport coming, the Cross Harbour Bridge coming, new infrastructure being created. All these things are going to have. So the old city, which is Mumbai city and suburbs, in 2030 will be a yesterday place. And there will be a brand new places which will be created both for the people at the affordable housing segment, the housing segment, and the premium segment. All the three new segments will be created in newer places. And this place, marginal redevelopment will take place 10 years from today. So you have to create brand new cities with brand new infrastructure that will happen in 2030. And we will obviously move northwards to do it. The connection is already started and huge developments will take place. So we can definitely create enough housing for everything. The infrastructure of the city has to move in that direction, long enough and strong enough for the purposes of doing it. And second, there will be another sector of real estate developers who will be at a very low margin of business, be able to do the business of business that will take place for the purposes of it. So they may not look like very things, but they could be large companies which will be there, which will be more contractual, product-driven creative business, which will work on efficiency of construction and lowering of costs and others, which will do mass construction. And they will also become very profitable. Just like the top-end developers of today, there will be mass developers of tomorrow who will be doing 50,000 apartments a year, 1 lakh apartments a year, which will do it. The margins will be very small, but the construction will be there. So we'll need an entire new category of developers, so to say, who will take up that type of activity to do mass construction, analogous to what has happened in China, which took place and created a large amount of mass housing that took place in the bottom end of the pyramid for the purposes of doing it. And but it will happen for sure, because there's no alternative. People expect it to happen. If it doesn't happen, I'll feel sorry that the people still have to live in jhopatpattis. So when you have an alternative, Anuj, why not we work towards that direction and be able to do it? And there'll be a lot of youngsters who will take up that end of the pyramid, who will do production-oriented real estate business, which will be just mass housing. And the government will have to make a master plan to do that.
Very interesting, Niranjan bhai. I'm sorry that we've just run out of time. There are so many more questions still left to ask you, and particularly the last one that you said was phenomenal. That we will have cities, we will have new cities, between whether it's Panvel to Karjat, given the quality of infrastructure that has come in. These will be brand new cities over the next 10, 15, 20 years, and perhaps these cities will cater to that mass housing. And you're so right, in China, that's what these developers do. It is not necessarily that per square feet they make the maximum return. It's just on a dollar basis, they have a huge amount of profits, and not necessarily as a percentage margin, which is a thing that we may see in India, both the categories of those developers. Thank you, Niranjan bhai. Just a quick summary. We're going to see consolidation continuing. Hopefully, millennials will come in once we are on the other side of this consolidation. Gender diversity in the past wasn't there. We're hoping that as the market, as this industry sector becomes cleaner, as the name, becomes a little bit more cleaner, we will have more women joining in. Capital requirement, like you said, is to the next generation is going to be something that you need to be careful with. Regulatory compliance. Above all, you need to be passionate. You need to be passionate about the product that you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. And lastly, as you said, is that we may see a two-tier market. One, which is the high-end developers who will work on a pure percentage, very high percentage margin, and another who's going to be really looking at volumes and bringing in efficiency in delivering those volumes. Thank you very much, Niranjan bhai. It's been absolutely a pleasure, speaking with you. With this, hi Anarock, nice to see you.
I just wanted to raise my hand. I had a question.
Mr. Puri, Mr. Hiranandani, we also have Dr.
It's not about
Patna with
real
us.
estate.
Yeah.
Mr. Hiranandani and Mr. Puri, it's about how do you stay relevant for 3 decades? Both of you, Mr. I mean, and that's why no wonder Tripti and Sapna got you for the 40 under 40 awards as a culmination. And clearly, Mr. Hiranandani, I want to ask you, is Mr. Puri the Devanand of the real estate business? Is he the Shah Rukh Khan, or is it Rajesh Khanna? Which one of these is he?
Yeah, I think he's the Shah Rukh Khan. That's the youngest, really. And he has a style and a suave which is different than everybody else.
Yes.
Yes,
and an energy which is so positive and
absolutely
and
perfect.
Yes, but I
second
say
that.
jokingly, but continuing, I really second the fact that I was listening to you last 5 minutes, that clearly we still have a lot to do. And clearly one thing Mr. Puri said 16 months back to me on a first or second webinar we did, when he was on my TV show, and he said that we were talking about the sector, and he said real estate, residential sector will see a boom, because for the first time, millennials have spent much more time in their homes. So they will possibly invest in homes more than ever, because homes are no longer just homes, they're office spaces, they're schools, they're entertainment spaces. So everyone will need their separate rooms. So clearly, you can see it in the Bangalore market. You can see it in the Mumbai residential market. Those trends are happening. So thank you so much for being here and being part of it. Mr. Hiranandani, you've been part in the last 17, 18 years that we've existed. We've been part of all our initiatives at Realty Plus. And of course, Mr. Puri is in some way responsible for Realty Plus being born. So Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anurag.
My
Thank you.
gratitude.
You know,
We
you know,
have
I'm
had
very,
Amitabh
Dr.
Bachchan of
Batra,
real
you know, I'm
estate.
very, very, very fond of you on
Thank
a
you so
personal
much.
level. Besides the excellent work that you are doing in the business field and the publishing field. So my heartiest congratulations.
Thank
Keep
you
at
very
it.
kindly.
All the
Thank
best.
you.
I know the media is challenged, but I'm glad that you will continue to do be fighting fit as always to do it. And
Thank you
so
so much.
much.
Thank you.